Hello student, today I am going to discuss the chapter Cell Structure and Functions. So let us start with the introduction of this chapter. So cell forms the lowest level of organization which has life. So every living organism is composed of cell. So the lowest level of organization is called the cellular level. The cell is the structural and functional unit of life. As I have said you, every organism is composed of cell. So cell is the structural and functional unit of life. There are many different kinds of cells. Each kind of cell performs a special function. So there are various different kinds of cell and each and every cells are specialized to perform specific functions. So now the cell, it is very small, which cannot be seen by our naked eye. So cells of living organisms are very small. As I have said you, the cell of living organisms are too small to be seen by our naked eye. So this cannot be seen by the naked eye. So how can we see the cells? This can be seen only under a powerful microscope. If we want to see a cell, then it is only possible under a powerful microscope. The simplest microscope is a magnifying glass. Now, if you try to find a microscope, then the magnifying glass, hope you all have seen the magnifying glass. So that simple magnifying glass is also an example of a simple microscope. With the help of a simple microscope, we can see small things, but very small structures may not be seen clearly with it. Now, as I've said you, the magnifying glass is also an example of a very simple microscope. You can see smaller things with the help of that magnifying glass. But if you try to see a cell with the help of that magnifying glass, then you won't be able to see it, because for that you need a powerful microscope. And the magnifying glass is not a powerful microscope, it is a simple microscope. So therefore, to see a smaller thing, a compound microscope is used. So therefore, to see a smaller thing, a compound microscope is used. So let us discuss about this microscope some more. Let us discuss some more points of this microscope. Magnification of a simple microscope. Okay, it may be around 10 or 25. With the help of simple microscope, we can see small thing, but very small structures cannot be seen through a simple microscope. Okay, so for that we need a compound microscope, as I have said you during my discussion. So where can you see a compound microscope? A compound microscope is seen basically in the laboratories. And let us see what are the uses of a compound microscope. A compound microscope is used for, first of all, testing blood, stool and sputum of patient. As I have said you can find a compound microscope in a laboratory. So for testing blood, stool and sputum of patient, the lab technicians, they use the compound microscope. And next one, for the study of cells and tissues of plants and animals. Various schools also, they have a compound microscope in their laboratory to study the cell, to see the cells and tissue of plants by preparing the slide. So the specimen to be examined with the compound microscope is placed on the specimen table under the objective lens. Light is focused on the object by adjusting the eyepiece. So what actually does a compound microscope have through which we can see the smaller thing? Basically, a compound microscope, the main part of that compound microscope through which we can see the smaller thing is a lens. With the help of that lens which is present in that microscope, we can see the smaller thing. Then let us proceed to the next part, discovery of the cell. So who discovered cell? Cell was discovered by Robert Hooke. So this is a very important name to remember always. So keep it in your mind. Who discovered cell? Robert Hooke. He discovered cells in the year 1665. So how did he discover it? Accidentally he discovered it, okay? And what actually happened, he was observing a thin slice of cork. Okay, he was observing a thin slice of cork. So what is the meaning of a cork? It is the bark of a tree. So well, Robert Hooke was observing a thin slice of cork under his self-designed microscope. Then what he found? He found some room-like structures. While observing the thin slice of cork under a microscope, he found that there are some room-like structures inside that bark. So those room-like structures were named cell. Okay, so basically what is the literature term, or what is the literature meaning of a cell? The literature meaning of a cell is a room. So the cell which we are talking about in this chapter, it is also simple a room like structures only. Okay, so he called those structure, okay, or he termed the name the structures cell. So he observed thin slices of cork under a microscope. From his observation, he found that the cork is made up of box-like compartment, box-like room, forming a honeycomb structure. He called this compartment as cell. So he coined the term cells. So the main point of it is Robert Hooke discovered cells in the year 1665. Okay, how did he discover it? He discovered the cell by observing a thin slice of cork under his self-designed microscope. So then the next point comes is the cell. As I have said you that all living organisms are made up of very small building blocks called cell. So all living organisms are made up of very small compartment like building blocks called cells. Every living organism is made up of cell. So a cell is the smallest unit of life. The smallest unit of life is cell. Second one, a cell is capable of performing all biological activities in any living organism. In order to stay alive, we perform various activities. An example of the biological activity is respiration. An example of the biological activity is digestion. An example of the biological activity is excretion. An example of the biological activity is nutrition. Okay, so whatever biological activity you are performing, in each and every biological activity a cell is involved only. So thus, for that reason, a cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Without a cell, an organism cannot survive. Then next comes the variety of organism. Cells show a wide variation in terms of shape, function and other features. So cells show a wide variation. That means cells show diversity. Diversity means cells show a kind of variation in terms of shape. That means there are different kinds of shape in a cell. Okay, all the cells are not similar in shape. Okay, neither they perform the similar function. Okay, and apart from that they have other features also. Means different kinds of cell will have different features, they will have different shapes and they will perform different functions. In unicellular organism, all the functions of the body are carried out by a single cell. You have read in your previous classes about unicellular organism. What is an unicellular organism? It is the organism which consists only one cell. That means in that organism, one cell is its whole body. Okay, so that's why it is written in unicellular organism, all the functions of the body are carried out by a single cell. In multicellular organism, the various functions in the body are divided among the different groups of cells. But in multicellular organism, the term multicellular means many cells. Okay, so in multicellular organism, the various functions in the body are divided among the different groups of cells. So we're going to come across the term unicellular and multicellular again. So let us start with it. The number of cells. In this number of cells, the first point is unicellular. What is unicellular? It is, or who are called the unicellular? These are the organism consisting of only one cell. That means the organism's body is composed of only one cell. And an example of a unicellular organism is amoeba. Okay. Then the next one is multicellular. So, as I have said you, this term itself is giving the definition of this particular term. Multicellular means many cell. So, who are called these multicellular organism? These are those organisms consisting of millions of cells. This means organism consisting of millions of cells are known as multicellular organism. Example, human being. We are multicellular organism. Okay, because we have billions of cells. right? So next comes the size of the cell. In multicellular organism, cell have different shapes and sizes. The size of the cell may vary from 0.1 micrometer to as large as 170 into 130 micromillimeter. So in multicellular organism, as its body is composed of billions of cells, so different cells will have different shapes and different sizes. So the size of the cell, it can vary from 0.1 micrometer, the smallest one, to as large as 170 into 130 millimeter. Okay, so if I would ask you a question, have you all seen a cell? You might be thinking that no, we haven't seen a cell. But in actual, we all have seen a cell. An example of a cell is an egg. An egg is also an example of a cell. Okay, so the egg of ostrich is the largest cell. The egg cell of the ostrich is the largest cell. Okay, if the question comes, name the largest cell, or if anyone asks you a question, name the largest cell, then it is the ostrich egg, about 7 centimeter in diameter. The alga acetabularia, it is a unicellular organism. It consists of a single cell having a length of 10 centimeter. So an algae is a plural term. Alga is a singular term. Okay, and the alga acetabularia, it is a unicellular organism. To the name of unicellular organism, its body is composed of a single cell only. Okay, so the size of cell has no relationship with the body size of an organism. The size of cell is related to its function. Now let us talk about the size of the cell. This size of the cell, okay, you might be thinking, if a huge organism, for example an elephant, will have a bigger cell as compared to us because we are smaller than that elephant, but this fact is completely not true. Why? The size of the cell depends upon the particular function. What function the cell is performing. Okay, the size of the cell is not dependent on the body structure of an organism. Clear? The size of the cell will completely depend on the kind of function the cell is performing. As an example, you have two onions on, you just take two onions, a smaller one and a bigger one. You might be thinking that the bigger onion will have bigger cell, the shape of the cell will be bigger as compared to the cell present in a smaller onion. But when you will observe it under a microscope, you will find that both the onions will have a similar kind of cell. Okay, both the onions will, or the shape of the cells present in both the onions will be same only. So the shape of the cell is dependent or is related to the function it is performing. Clear? Then next comes the shape of the cell. Different cells have different shapes. As I've said you, the shape of the cell depends on the function they are performing. So different cells have different shapes based on the function they perform. The shape of the cell is related to its function and its location. As I have discussed in the previous slide, that the shape of the cell is related to its function. I hope you have understood this part, and its location. Some cells are oval or round in shape. Certain others are elongated. When you will see a cell under a microscope, when you see the different kinds of cell under a microscope, you will find that some cells are oval in shape, while some are round in shape, and certain others are elongated. That means they are thread-like structures. Amoeba is a irregular in shape. Amoeba is a unicellular organism. Its shape is completely irregular. It does not have any definite shape. And this unicellular organism, the shape, its body shape always keeps on changing. Okay. Next comes the nerve cell is long, branched, and has a thread-like projections. I will show you the picture of the nerve cell. You will find that the nerve cell is long, it is branched, and it has thread-like projections. Next comes the cell membrane provides shape to the cells in plant and animals. Now, this term, the cell membrane, what is the cell membrane? The cell membrane is the cell covering. The cell covering provides shape to the cells in plants and animals. Let us proceed to the next slide. You can just see these are the different shapes of the cell. You can just see the shapes of the cell. These shapes are completely different. As I've said you that I will show you the picture of the nerve cell. So this is an example of the nerve cell. You can just see it is branched, it is long. Clear? So this is an example of the nerve cell. You can just see these are called the dendrites. This is called the cell body. This is called as the axon, and this is called as the nerve ending. We are going to discuss about this in our higher classes. In class 9, you will find a complete topic on the nerve cell. So just to view it, you can just see the nerve cell here. This is an example of the smooth muscle cell. This is an example of the human sperm. This is an example of the bone cell which is present in your bone. This is a diatom. This is a liver cell. You can just see it. This is a cartilage cell. This is a bacteria. This is epithelial cell. So you can just see these are the different shapes of the cell, and each and every cells which are enlisted here, they have different functions to perform. Okay, as an example, the cell which are present in our eye. What is the work of the cell? The work of the cell is to receive light and enable us to see. The cell present in our heart. What is the work of the cell in our heart? The work of the cell is to continue the heartbeat, because the work of our heart is to pump blood. So the cells present in the heart and the cells present in our eyes will have different shape because their functions are different. I hope you all have understood this part. Then let us proceed to the next part, that is the cell structure and function. Cells differ in their shape and sizes. So by now I hope you all have already known why do the cells differ. The cells differ in their shape and sizes because of the functions, because of the different functions they perform. All cells, however, show similarities in their structure. But there is one more line. All cells, however, show similarities in their structure. So what kind of similarities do they have? The similarity is in their organelles. The similarity is in their material. As I've said a term just now, organelle. What is organelle? It is the material. So all cells, however, show some similarities in their structure. What kind of similarity? Those cells will have the same organelles inside them. So a typical cell consists of the three basic parts. What does a cell consist of? The cell consists of the three basic parts. First one is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Cell membrane and plasma membrane both have the same definition. You can either call it a cell membrane or you can either call it a plasma membrane. So we will talk about the cell membrane, plasma membrane in our further part. The next one is the cytoplasm, and then next one is the nucleus. That means a cell will contain these three basic parts. First one is the cell membrane, second one is the cytoplasm, and third one is the nucleus. So in our next class we are going to talk about these three things in detail, and apart from that we are going to talk about some of the unicellular organisms also. Thank you.